Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. My name is Morgan. I'm the Services Manager for Recompose. I'm excited today to talk to you not only about Recompose itself, but about what we're doing and how it impacts funeral service. I'd like to start by giving you a little bit of a background on myself, and then going over the Recompose timeline and our process, and then connecting everything back to our approach to funeral service. So a little bit about me. I am a licensed funeral director in Oregon and Washington. I spent the last 4 years in conventional funeral service. So before moving up here to Washington to work for Recompose, I did everything from embalming to cremations to conventional burials, as well as green burials and home funerals. So I like to say I've had the full spectrum of funeral service. But interestingly, my background is in information technology. I studied math and physics, and that's what my degrees are in, so nothing directly related to the field. But pretty early into my academic career, I realized that my true interests were in helping folks navigate liminal spaces, such as death. So I joined funeral service, but I felt that the role of a funeral director should really be expanded and it should be more community-centered, but also that there were a lot of discrepancies in funeral service that I wanted to address. So I'm pretty grateful to be working for Recompose and starting to address those things. But before I get into that much further, I'd like us to take a moment to reflect. Take a moment and reflect on your relationship with nature. When you close your eyes and you do that reflection, what do you see? Where do you go? For me, I go to the mountains in my hometown. I grew up in rural Arizona, and anytime I had a big upset, I would go to the ruins of a mansion that are located in the mountains there. It would help me process my emotions. It was really just a true place of solace for me. Beyond that, the wilderness has always been a place of joy, of imagination, of inspiration. I'm a bit of a biology nerd, and for a long time as a young person, I wanted to study insects in the rainforest. Now I just study insects in my backyard, but I still have an overall feeling of wellness and of belonging when I get to spend time in nature. Beyond the emotional support that it provides, a lot of areas of life connect to it, especially here in the Pacific Northwest. There are a lot of beautiful green spaces that we can visit in Seattle, and where I just came from in Eugene. There's a lot of beautiful green spaces there too. A lot of us build our livelihoods off of nature. We are farmers or fishers or loggers. And even if none of those things are true, I think a lot of folks can agree that a pretty ideal vacation is maybe going to rent a cabin in the forest or renting a yacht on the beach. There's a lot of areas and in a lot of ways our lives connect to nature. So instinctively, for me, I would think that our ways of death would connect to it as well, but often they don't. Often those options are pretty far removed. I really do think that there's a disconnect between nature and death care. And I know I'm not alone in feeling that way. I think the concept was really felt by Katrina Spade, who's our founder and our CEO, and I think it's a big reason why she created the company. Burial and cremation, which have been the only options presented to us for the last couple of hundred years until very recently, neither of those felt quite right. And she realized that while green burial existed, there wasn't any green burial space within Seattle. So inspired by her love of cities, she wanted to create an option for urban folks. If you've been following her work for a while, you may be familiar. This manifested as the Urban Death Project initially. It has since morphed into Recompose. In 2018, Katrina and her team had enough tools to pursue legalization. So the following year, 2019, Governor Jay Inslee signed into law natural organic reduction with SB 5001. The following year, it actually became legal. So May of this year, of 2020, is when natural organic reduction became legal. It's been a pretty big year for us. This was also the year that our pre-planning option called Precompose became available. You can now sign up for that in advance of need if you want to. I'm a member. I make $25 a month payments that go towards my death care, so that's pretty cool. And even more exciting, we are set to open in not even a week. I cannot wait. We are accepting folks now though, so if you know someone who's in need of our services or just curious, feel free to have them get in touch with us. I wanted to go over just kind of a general pricing comparison so you have an idea of where we're at compared to other options. In Washington, cremation runs around $1,000 to $7,000, and this depends on if you're getting a direct cremation, which is more around the $1,000 mark, versus if you're having a memorial service and a ceremony and then cremation, makes it cost a little bit more. Conventional burial is 12 grand or more, and green burial is right around $7,000. Recompose is $5,500, so it's a bit of a medium point. But what's great is that mostly everything you need is included in our service. It includes transport, handling, legal needs. It includes a virtual ceremony that is designed by our staff and you. And it also includes transformation into soil and the opportunity to donate that soil to the forest. Speaking of soil, let's talk a little bit now about how the soil is made. I think it's magic. It's actually science. The process is called natural organic reduction, and you'll see it written as NOR, abbreviated sometimes. But this process gently breaks down organic material and it creates nutrient-rich soil amendment. So our process starts, as you see on this chart here, with wood chips. So we add wood chips, alfalfa, and straw into what's called the cradle, and we make a nice bed for the body to lay on top of. The cradle and the plant matter and the body then go into this vessel down here, and the rest is done over time by naturally occurring microbes. So we have microbes in our bodies and on our bodies and on the plant material that all go into fueling this process. The body and the plant materials stay in that vessel for about 30 days. And what I want to really iterate here is that the first 7 to 10 days of the 30-day process is simply the body resting. It doesn't move, it doesn't go anywhere, nothing moves. It is just at peace, it is resting. While this is happening, the microbes break down everything on a molecular level. And the process of that breaking down actually generates heat. So inside the vessel reaches 131 degrees Fahrenheit at least for several days. This is really important in the process. It's what eliminates pathogens and breaks down pharmaceuticals to well below EPA recommended levels, so the soil is safe. There are some exceptions that would make someone not able to undergo natural organic reduction. This is prion diseases like Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. If the person has had a recent radiation seed implant, and then there are some other rare diseases that would disqualify them too, like Ebola, but most of these diseases, again, are very, very rare. During our 30-day process, materials in the vessel are mixed at several points. This helps ensure thorough aeration and decomposition. If you're familiar with the process of cremation, you'll know that after the flame portion is done, you have bone fragments that vary in size, but they're, pretty big. Something similar happens in our process. After about 3 weeks, that is what's left. It's just bone shards, and then the plant matter, of course. So the mixing helps break down those bone fragments further. The soil is then taken out of the vessel and it cures in a bin for an additional 2 to 4 weeks. It just depends on the soil itself. And what we mean by cure is it just sits in a bin and it's further aerated, so it just dries out. So after about 6 to 8 weeks total from the start of that 30-day process, the soil is ready for use. And you get to choose how it is used. So you can fill out forms with us ahead of time if you have specific desires for how your soil is used, or you can leave it up to your friends and family after you die. That's fine too. But it is safe to be used like a soil amendment that you would buy from a nursery. You can grow plants with it. And we also offer an option to donate to Bell's Mountain for conservation efforts. The process creates quite a bit of soil. It's a cubic yard of soil per person. If you can't envision how big that is, think of a truck bed and fill it to the brim with soil. That's how much is generated, and that is quite a bit. So some folks may want to take some home to their garden and donate the rest. They may want to take it all home, or they may want to donate it all. That's fine. What you want to do is totally up to you. This is Bell's Mountain, and actually all of the nature photos you're going to see moving forward are of Bell's Mountain. It's a 700-acre nonprofit land trust, and it's located in southern Washington. If you're familiar with that area, it's near Battleground, I believe. It's protected in perpetuity, so you can know that soil donations that go there are going towards land that is not going anywhere. It's going to be protected forever. Soil donations do help with their conservation efforts. They help repair land clearing that happened. The land was mismanaged, so the people who are managing it now are working to repair wetlands, repair soil health, and protect vulnerable plants and animals as well. And the soil health aspect is especially important. Healthy soil sequesters carbon and it prevents it from entering into the atmosphere. So this reduction of carbon right into the atmosphere helps reduce climate change. So obviously the process of turning folks into soil is different in and of itself. It's a new option within an existing funeral industry, and we felt that NOR, it's so different and so new that it needed to reshape our funeral service as well. So our approach to funeral service needs to reflect the company values, and it needs to be a bit of a new approach. So not only is it ecologically sound, but we want to offer participatory, meaningful, and very intentional death care. Our company and everybody within it embraces the concept that returning of the body to the earth is a natural part of life. Our funeral directing practices are based on a lot of social concepts, but one of them is the idea that it's normal for friends and family to want to participate in death care however feels right to them. So we don't mask death, we work within the natural cycles of death, and however friends and family want to participate is great. From the very inception of Recompose, it has drawn upon the work of queer feminist practices like equity and inclusion. These are really, really important concepts to us, and it means that we're committed to advocating and protecting the rights of Black and Indigenous people of color, religious minorities, undocumented folks, as well as the LGBTQ+ community. Our advisory board, who's been with us for quite some time, as well as all of our collaborators and our supporters who have worked for years to help create our ethos, will continue to work with us as we grow. So we're continuing to look at the intersection of death care and funeral directing with marginalized communities to find ways to be allies and to continue to do these things as we grow the Recompose community. At the heart of a lot of what we do is respect. I know that Recompose is not going to be the choice that everybody makes. That's okay. It's not going to resonate with everybody. The idea is that we want people to choose what resonates with them. And those who do choose our service may not want us involved all the way. That's great too. We are in full support of home funerals, of transporting your loved one yourself if that's what you want to do. We're here just to support you and to make sure that that goes okay. We also fully support the work of death doulas, and we want to work with them as much as possible. So please reach out, death doulas, if you'd like to talk more about that. At the end of everything, we just want people to have a choice. We are big believers in autonomy, if you could not tell already. So we want to offer tools to ensure that folks' wishes are carried out after death. We want to provide services based on the individual and what their needs are. We recognize that conventional funeral service does not represent the full spectrum of relationships often. This is really important to me to recognize because I am a queer person. So the intersection of death and the queer community mean a lot to me. Also to our founder who is queer, and a lot of our advisory board members are queer too. So looking at the intersection of death care and the queer community and looking at how, the knowledge that friends and family for us are often chosen, we wanted to find a way to make our paperwork and our processes be inclusive of that. For me personally, if I didn't have this paperwork in place, my funeral arrangements would fall to my biological family. And while I love them, that's not the right choice for me. I want my partner to be able to handle my arrangements. So we keep those queer issues in mind as we make our processes. The concept of community itself is very important to us. And in reflecting, I think 2020, what a year it's been. I think it has particularly honed in on new ideas for how society could be. A lot of beautiful and new ideas are coming forward. We all feel that we need change and we want change. As we think about these ideas, I think it's very important to consider what our roles are as individuals in a more fair and just society. What can we do to enact community care? How can we build community with these ideas in mind? For me as a death care worker, I believe that death care and death work is part of what I call the community care pie. I believe its slice is as important as the other slices of the community care pie. I think that death work should be very active in society. I think it should be actively talked about, and I have a commitment to that, and it's very important to me. So in 2021, if it's safe, and a lot of that is uncertain right now, but we hope to welcome community events in our upcoming Seattle facility. I'd love to be able to do things like have death cafes, art therapy groups, grief support groups, as well as welcome other educators into the space so that they can offer what they have to share. It's very important to me, and I cannot wait till that day comes. One of the biggest concepts I think Recompose is known for is that of environmental health. So I'd like to talk about some of the studies we've done and some of the statistics that we have. I think it's important to talk about the physical impact of our work. Current options in the funeral world are not sustainable. One day we're going to run out of room to bury people. Burial and cremation both take up a lot of resources. If you choose Recompose, you choose to be turned into soil, that process takes 1/8 of the energy of burial and cremation. And I think there's a lot of misconception that cremation is more environmentally friendly, but our studies have shown that it takes the same amount of energy and resources as conventional burial. So when you choose Recompose, you're saving 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide. And if you don't know, you can't get an idea of how much that is, it is the equivalent of charging your smartphone 125,000 times, or of driving like your standard sedan 2,500 miles. That is per person. When you think of that on a bigger level, if you think of people, more and more people choosing this option, the impact can be huge. I think that means a lot to folks who support us or who are interested in us, especially those folks who live their lives being kind of conscious of their environmental impact. The stats mean a lot to them, but there's also a pretty big spiritual and emotional connection. This is a way, as I see it, to truly return to the earth. You are being made into soil, into nutritious soil that can actually grow plants. So you're plugging your body back into the natural cycles that we're all connected to. Instead of like with cremation, where all of your organic matter is incinerated, you can be turned into something that is useful. You can be useful even after death, and we often refer to this as beautiful use. It's a chance at a second life, is how I like to look at it. We want to connect folks to these concepts even more through ceremony after they experience death. So I've designed a ceremony that is based pretty loosely on the carbon cycle. It's okay if you don't remember what that is because I have this diagram here. And the parts of it I'd like you to remember are that of sunlight, photosynthesis, the decay of organisms, and animal and plant respiration. Those are the concepts that I plucked from this and, again, loosely built the ceremony around. So clients can modify the ceremony. They can get rid of my ideas completely and plug in their own cultural and spiritual aspects. There's complete invitation for customization of the ceremony. I just believe that intentional acts of the ceremony facilitate connection not only with the person who has died, but with each other, with the participants of the ceremony, as well as with the transformation process itself. I also view it as a new opportunity for funeral directors to connect with clients in ways maybe they haven't before. So not only are you planning the arrangement with families, but you're actively taking them through these cycles in the ceremony if they want. This is a rendering of what our initial thought was for our Seattle space before COVID kind of changed things. As it does, we still want to embody these aspects when we open our Seattle facility later in 2021. But I want you to imagine being in a similar atmosphere. Think about the greenery, the community, and the light. Imagine that you have just lost somebody that you love, and now you're coming here to perform a ceremony and say goodbye to them. Keep in mind also that all ceremonies are going to be virtual right now. They're going to be filmed on location at what's called the Greenhouse, which is our south of Seattle facility, until our Seattle facility opens. But hold that image in your mind, and we start the ceremony with a collective candle lighting. So this is done not only to honor and to represent the person who has died, but to represent photosynthesis, that sunlight that's in the carbon cycle. So we take a moment, we light the candle, and the next step is to pause and to breathe together. We just take a nice breath in and out. This is done to calm our nervous system. Even one breath for me, I can already feel it makes a difference. But it also reminds us of the flow of respiration that's shared by all living things. Every living creature on this planet goes through the process of respiration. We all breathe, right? The next step after that moment is to begin the physical aspect of adding plants in. And the idea here is to cocoon the cloth-covered body in what I view as tools of transformation. I think these plants are tools of transformation because, again, they have those active natural microbes on them that are going to help fuel this process. So by doing this, not only does it serve a practical purpose, but it also reminds us that plants help us in life and death. If you remember back to that chart, plant decay is a really important part of the carbon cycle. Once all the plant materials are in place, you can see here on the left, the body is making its way over towards the individual vessel it will be placed in. This is the beginning. The body is placed in here to begin its transformation journey into soil. The carbon cycle, again, it needs this part of things. It's a sacred concept of our bodies breaking down in order to continue on. Once the door to the individual vessel is closed, we start playing a video of Bell's Mountain, of the 700 acres of land. And we show this as we thank the person not only for the time they spent with us during their life, but for their important gift to the earth after death. They're returning back to the earth, back to a truly beautiful place, and entering back into a cycle. This is intentional funeral service to me. This is how I feel we're redefining the role and looking at it from different angles. Connecting with nature at the end of life nurtures people. I really believe that it nurtures us before we die when we have that connection, that comfort. But I think it also nurtures our survivors afterwards when they know that, you know, this beautiful and important soil is going towards something bigger. It's very, very comforting, I think. Being mindful of these concepts as a funeral director, of how to facilitate something that's truly nourishing and meaningful, breathes new intention into the role of funeral director. Not only do I get to do the funeral, the practical aspects of funeral service, but I get to be a guide, a natural cycles guide, guiding folks through the forest, through this transformation process. It is profound to me. Every single part of this process is profound, but especially the soil donation, that is profound too, because it's offering a chance to become part of something bigger. It's really inspiring to me, and I've included some photos of that something bigger in the hopes that it will inspire you too. That's a view of Mount St. Helens from the Bells Mountain Trail. The Recompose team, back before I joined, but I'll go there one day too. They went on a hike very, very early in the morning, and they caught this wonderful photo on a clear morning of the sun coming up. And you can see in the next photo here, the sun is rising through a cluster of trees that they passed. Here's a wetlands habitat that they happen to walk by, and there are a lot of these out there, actually. And this next photo, it is so beautiful that it almost looks like a stock photo, but that's just the kind of beauty that's out there. Remember, it's 700 acres of land, Bells Mountain is. So in 2021, Bells Mountain hopes to be able to welcome visitors so that we can give tours. I think it's important for folks, not only those who have chosen to donate their loved one's soil to Bells Mountain, but who are interested in maybe choosing this for themselves, could go out there and see and to visit, because I think you really get a sense for how the molecules that make up our forms in this life on Earth, they're broken down and they're transformed, truly, but they continue on. Maybe the next time you meet your loved one, it's going to be as songbirds or wildflowers or a group of pine trees. I think this way you can really feel that the cycle continues. Thank you for spending time with me today, and I look forward to answering all your questions later.